Thank you, Ayo. We have with us this morning Abdulrazak Bello Barkindo, who is Head Media and Publicity of the Nigeria Governors Forum. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you, Malcolm.
And we're talking about the minimum wage. It looks like not all the states are in compliance yet. Not all the state governments and their governors, by extension, of course, are in compliance with the minimum wage, new minimum wage law. A lot of them have offered, well, maybe not a lot, but a few of them, maybe a very tiny few, have offered a little above the minimum prescribed by the federal government. They say we're doing more than what is prescribed. And some people believe that that's how the argument should be, that there should be a benchmark. Are we still on a discussion where governors are saying, no, the federal government cannot prescribe to us what should happen in the state? Are we still there, or we've moved beyond that?
No, we're still there, and I don't think we're going to move beyond that. But the point is, that's the most rational thing to do. State governments have different financial liquidity and financial situations, and they all have to look at their templates, you know, to implement the minimum wage law.
It's interesting you say we're still there, because some people will say they were involved in the tripartite agreement. They were represented while the discussions were going on. They were carried along, let's use the Nigerian term now, you know, in the discussions and at finally setting that minimum wage. So can they really still come and stand on the fact that, oh, we're a federation and the federal government should not determine what will happen in the states? No,
the minimum wage is something that everybody has agreed to pay so far. The only thing is that the incrementals are becoming very cumbersome for some states. There are states that cannot afford what other states are doing. Some states have agreed to even pay more than the 30,000 naira to the most vulnerable. But there are a lot of states that are not, you know, capable of paying, you know. So I know that at our penultimate meeting, there was a conversation about how to borrow templates from one state to another. And yes, there are states that have very beautiful templates and are, you know, working it out in a very systematic way. But there are others that are still having difficulty with, you know, their staff strength, with, you know, the various fraudulent ways that people are siphoning money in the name of salaries and things like that. So they're still trying to work out how to get a specific number that they can deal with, and how to be sure that they're not, you know, having to pay ghost workers and things like that. So that's one of the things that are that is, you know, making this process
But there is a template for that already. Even the federal government is implementing its IP system very aggressively. Well, you've seen the furore between it and ASU over, you know, whether or not this should be implemented in the universities. So you see that indeed that there is some, you know, attempt to wield out ghost workers as a result also of this minimum wage increment. Why is it rocket science for the governors to implement that in their states?
It is not rocket science. What they are saying is that the federal government template is not a one-size-fits-all. Every state is looking at its situation, is looking at its staff strength, is looking at, you know, its, you know, liquidity and its intakes and IGRs over time. So it's not going to take a threat to get states to implement this. They are working very hard to do it. But, I mean, Labour is, you know, I think they enjoy fighting governors.
No,
so
Labour, some people will say that's not a fair comment on Labour.
I don't want to be
Because
fair,
if we're talking about a minimum wage, which is, I mean, even just take a look at the amounts, 30,000 naira, it's very little as a matter of fact. And you look at the reality, you look at today's reality, and how much the average worker earns, you know, as a take-home, it does, you know, create cause and source for concern. Especially in a circumstance where we say we want to eliminate and we want to fight corruption. There are huge questions to be asked as to whether or not some state governors take the welfare of their workers seriously.
I have not seen a state governor who does not take the welfare of his workers very seriously. I know that workers deserve more than 30,000 naira per month, but I know that if the 30,000 naira is given to the most vulnerable, there is likely to be a crisis in the incrementals over how much the top senior civil servants want to get. And that is where the governors are having problems. I mean, I remember about 2 years ago when we started this argument, a certain state didn't want to get into this argument because as far as they were concerned, their salary bills will, skyrocket to maybe 3-4 billion in a month. And that is because there are a lot of other top government functionaries who also want to benefit from this increment. And they're arguing that, 14% is too little for people like them. And I think, the top civil servants should begin to consider the most vulnerable bracket. That is the ones who are between level 1 and 7. And, ensure that these people are settled immediately.
Would you say
but
it's
the
also a
argument
lack
continues.
of creativity on the part of those who are supposed to, make sure that this works?
No, it's not lack of
because
creativity.
If you have
it's
a really
deliberate,
if you have a really huge
delay.
workforce, the question you should ask is, what are they producing? And one would think that the more workers you have, the more money you should be able to make as a result, even though we know that not all sectors are to make money, especially if you're a government. Some of them are to provide social safety nets and to provide social services. However, shouldn't there be a thorough overview of, how many workers we have and perhaps which sectors should be making money? Are they making the monies that should come to the state government? Or why will the state government have, such a huge amount of workers and at the end of the day they are struggling to pay them?
These are the critical questions that governors have asked over time. And, who is responsible for ensuring that this is the number of staff we have and this is the kind of people we need to pay. And they continue to deliberately falsify these figures in different states. I don't want to mention any. And the governors continue to have difficulty ensuring that this is what we have to pay and this is exactly what I should budget for, this kind of expenditure. And it has delayed a lot of states in implementing the minimum wage law. I don't think we can continue to live like this if people be would I say dishonest? If people are dishonest about, what their functions are. Because from the onset, the president has insisted that nobody should be laid off just because there's going to be an increment. And that's why the governors have insisted.
That is at the federal level. At the federal level,
yes.
The president has taken a stance.
Yeah, but most of there are just as many parties in the PDP as there are in the APC, and they probably are now beginning to find synergy, that they all work in tandem with each other. And that makes it mandatory for states to look at what template is implemented somewhere and see it in their, replicate it in their states. And I know that a certain state has, displayed a very, very workable template and has even begun paying. But the other states that are supposed to learn from it are saying, well, this template fits you, but it probably does not fit into mine.
What about tweaking it? What about tweaking it? So the states that came up with that, they didn't copy hook, line, and sinker what the federal government did. Even the federal government, to show its sincerity, started paying the minimum first, the minimum 30,000 naira first, while the negotiation for the increment was still going on. Are we seeing that level of commitment from the states that still say, oh, we have the problem, you have a problem of the increment or of the consequential adjustment, but we don't know if they have even started paying the 30,000 naira minimum? Well,
a lot of states have started paying that, and I think up to 20 states have, fallen in line with what is,
Should the situation be a lot of states? Shouldn't it be all the states have started paying?
Yeah, well, it depends on the situation of states. And I think the longer we continue to argue that every state should do the same thing, the more, difficult this becomes for the states. Because there obviously are states that cannot sustain that kind of
Can you tell us the states that are facing the most difficulty?
No, I can't.
It's important. So that,
yes,
it is extremely important that the people know which states are in this distress as a result of the minimum wage.
The people who are not being paid know why they are not being paid. And I believe that before the end of the year, everything will be in place. But I can tell you, up to 20 states have, complied with this regulation.
Are you protecting the states?
Well, that's my job, to protect the states. So it's not out of line for me not to mention states.
In the spirit of transparency and in the spirit of,
What is more transparent than tell you that 20 states are paying and the other 16 that are not paying or that have not set up, the committees that would negotiate with the state government are still doing that? They're working at it. And I don't think you can stampede states because these ultimatums, they don't help labor. They don't help the, average worker in the lower rungs of the ladder.
People need to be able to discern which states are really capable and which states are not. If you're able to say this state is not able to pay and you name the state, they're able to say what has been, say for instance, what they've been getting from Federal Accounts Allocation Committee and what has been their internally generated revenue and see for themselves the problems that the states might be in.
That would be contradictory for me because I'm not supposed to shame any state, and naming any state would shame it. My idea is to try as much as possible to help states to work out of this problem without, also endangering their situations. And that is what the Nigeria Governors Forum has been doing. We make sure that, we help states into simplifying or finding solutions to their problems. And so far, I think we're not doing badly.
Yeah, we'll come back and examine further your approach to protecting them when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Well, Mr. Abdulrazak Bello Barkindo is still with us in the studio, and we're talking about the ultimatum handed down to state governors by labor unions. I want to ask you just quickly, what will be your parting shot to labor unions who are saying that state governors need to do better than what they're doing right now in terms of attending to the welfare of workers?
Yeah, my parting shot would be that for Labour to continue to threaten governors would be like carrying coal to Newcastle, because threats would not help the matter. Instead, I would love to see Labour, cooperate with governors and ensure that, this problem is resolved amicably.
Cooperate? Well, I'm sure that Labour will definitely have something to say to that. We'll wait and see what their rejoinder will be. We have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Abdulrazak Bello Barkindo is Head Media and Publicity at the Nigeria Governors Forum. We'll take some of your messages now. This one is from Captain Robert, who says, within the Nigeria airspace, single African air transport market favors foreign carriers. A national carrier may not be the answer, but quality of service driven by internal policies. These policies, for example, taxes, import duty, and bureaucratic bottlenecks need review. That's from Captain Robert. Thank you for that.
I wonder if Captain is a pilot. But this next one is from Biliamin Popola, says, the right statement should be foreign airlines will no longer be allowed to treat Nigerians with disdain. While they may meet regulators' minimum standards, their services and aircrafts are often substandard when compared to other routes they fly.
And Badong Joshua says, good morning to you, presenters and the guests in the studio. I want to say that the anti-corruption agencies have not lived up to their expectations. All we see these days are selective fights. Once you're in the ruling party, you have become a saint, and it's glaring everywhere. Well, that's Joshua's comment there, and for you. Well, all the other comments you can see on all of our social media platforms, if you would even attempt to check them. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all of that. That's the show today. Thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Makinde.
I'm just going through our YouTube page, and I'm amazed at the content we have for you, from news to lifestyle, sports, and what have you. So you could check it out. It's at Channels Television. And don't forget to subscribe. I am Kayode Okikiolu.